The modern dandy little devil took herself off for playing parachuting. She suddenly changed from the lawless second lady of the Cloud family to a small village girl who was bullied by others in a poor village. She was not only skinny and bruised, but also faced the occasional alcoholic violence of the scum father, the excessive partiality of the scum father and scum milk, the scheming of the uncles and aunts, the T-words of the brothers and sisters. The little devil girl laughed her teeth white. With a cloud wine that looked so ugly that it vomited, I always wanted to pick the flourishing black ice flower of Mo Wang. Unfortunately, black ice flowers are not easy to pick at first glance. Mo Wang wanted to strangle her. Mo Wang took a second look and wanted to kill her. Mo Wang's third eye was crooked. Keywords of the novel. Poison concubine space. A small farmer woman's unscrupulous intentions against him no pop-ups, poison concubine space. A small farmer woman's unscrupulous intentions against him complete collection download. Poison concubine space. A small farmer woman's unscrupulous intentions against him latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Phoenix Lords return from another world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Phoenix Lords return from another world. The pitch black sky, with 9 stars converging, saw an object with a long tail gliding through the night sky. The radiance of the sky shone with the sun and moon, until it hit the depths of 90,000 mountains and dense forests, creating a deep pit and falling silent in all directions. The temples of the 4 kingdoms trembled, causing the hearts of the priests of the 4 kingdoms to tremble along with them. The high priest of Longqian Kingdom looked at the starry sky with great joy and said, "The Phoenix Lord has descended. Please pass the order and find the Phoenix Lord as soon as possible." The high priest of Huxiao Kingdom was still calculating. After a moment, the emperor next to him asked, "There is a vision in the sky, and there must be a big event happening. What can the priest calculate?" After a while, the high priest trembled his hands and exclaimed excitedly, "The 9 stars have come together. The Phoenix star, which has never lit up before, has finally lit up." Such a vision may be related to the birth of the Phoenix Lord 500 years ago. Master Feng. After a long time and a few more dynasties, they almost forgot that there was once such a magnificent and arrogant figure. The high priest saw the disdainful expression on his own king's face and was slightly anxious. "Your Majesty, we must send people out as soon as possible to search for. What kind of Phoenix Lord? Is it necessary to consume my material, financial, and human resources like this?" "Your Majesty, no matter what, it would be better for Lord Feng to hold it in his own hands and let the other 3 countries respect our tiger-roaring country." "Ha ha ha, the high priest is too worried. Our tiger-roaring kingdom is as strong as the current people and strong as the horses. You just need to wait. In less than 3 years, it won't be easy for them to bow down and submit to the throne." Seeing the high priest's old age and sweating profusely, the tiger-roaring kingdom ruler compromised, "It's just a plaything. If you catch it, then catch it." Although the king of Huxiao agreed to the words of the high priest, he did not really take this matter to heart. War is a man's business. What can that delicate woman do? "Shoo, are you playing a beauty trick?" The high priest of Huxiao Kingdom looked at his arrogant ruler, worried and sighed helplessly. The high priest of Wuyang was dressed in black, and after calculating 10 times, a strange light burst out in his black eyes. "Master Feng, I will definitely catch you," he said. The high priest of Fengyou Kingdom speculated over and over again due to a strange change, and finally lifted his head and exclaimed excitedly, "It has been 500 years, and she has finally returned." "Master, who are you talking about?" "Shoo, you guard this place, I'll go into the palace." After speaking, the high priest had already disappeared in a flash. Quickly, countless black shadows and flying eagles flew out of the imperial cities of the 4 kingdoms. At the same time, in a small apricot cloud village at the foot of Fengmen Mountain, in a low thatched cottage, a pair of clear and ethereal eyes suddenly opened in a corner of 90,000 mountains. Yun Air woke up with a momentary chill, and then in the dark room, a nauseating stench suddenly struck her soul, making her brain instantly clear and one side of her body vomit loudly. I vomited all my bile, my eyes turned white, and I was smoked unconscious again. Until the next morning, Yun-Er woke up again, still in this place, and adapted to the smell. In an instant, countless unfamiliar memories flooded into Yun-Er's mind. Yun-Er was dizzy for a moment, her head was so painful that it exploded. She almost couldn't hold on and fainted again. Although her body was severely damaged, Yun-Er's spiritual power was demonic and strong, supporting her weak body. From these unfamiliar memories, Yun-Er could tell that she was no longer the pampered and playboy princess of the Yun family in modern times, but the ugly girl Yun-Jiu who was being bullied in a small mountain village in the unknown world. Because her father was addicted to alcohol, he casually gave her a name for the wine, indicating her status. Dig a new pit. Please come and step on the cute little ones passing by when you have time. Momo, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Born in Fengyou Kingdom. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Born in Fengyou Kingdom. 14-year-old Yunjiu was suddenly reborn yesterday. But last night, I was beaten to death by the vicious old man who couldn't recognize anyone after drinking a few bites of cat urine from her. That's when Miss Yun-Er's powerful soul arrived, who had let herself go after playing extreme skydiving. After sorting out her thoughts, Miss Yun-Er was confused and repelled. No one can accept the identity of Hu Tianzhua, who used to call for wind and rain, and suddenly turned into an ugly female identity that was so tragic that she could only nestle in a straw shed. Everyone hated her when she went out, and she would fight and curse whenever she returned home. Now, she has suffered both old and new injuries, and her whole body is in pain. Her mood is unbeatable. This ugly girl was brutally disfigured by her elder sister when she was a child, and since then she has become an abandoned child of the Yun family. She still has a memory of her past life. Although she was just a pitiful and sold little peasant girl, she lived inexplicably in turmoil, with constant assassinations. I don't know who kept wanting her life. But she was just like Xiao Chang, who couldn't be beaten to death, narrowly escaped death time and time again, and ultimately died in the hands of scumbags and lowly women. For some unknown reason, Yun-Jiu was miraculously reborn with unwillingness and resentment, but unfortunately, he was killed again, and only then did he receive Yun-Er. Yun-Er let out a long sigh, sighed at the fate of Yun-Jiu, and sighed at his own resurrection from death. Thinking of my future terrible life, my restless mood is like falling into 1,000 years of molten milk, tormenting. Bang! Ugly bastard, why don't you get up and feed the pigs quickly? Really, cheap breeds are all cheap skin, they have to fight and scold to work. You lazy and wasteful eater, you can still be reborn early if you die early. Accompanied by the sound of kicking the wooden door, there was a harsh and piercing sound of gongs outside, even more thrilling than rock and roll, sobering up the mind. In Yun-Jiu's memory, this voice belonged to her sharp and harsh Aunt Li's voice, and she frowned slightly. Are you dead or not? If you're not dead, get up and work quickly. Our Yun family doesn't care for useless waste. Sister-in-law, Ah Jiu has been feeling unwell these past few days. Can you tolerate her for a few days? I can do her job. This timid voice was from Yun-Jiu's weak mother, Du Shi. Because I felt sorry for my injured daughter, I bravely said a word for her, but it was destined to be insignificant. Tolerance. Does she deserve it? And you, who's talking nonsense here, don't you need to do your job? A family of idle waste, it's just sick, not a wealthy lady. If we were to endure it, we would pass. If it were for someone with a cruel heart, they would have kicked out your bunch of tuberculosis ghosts long ago. I'll go do it now, don't be angry. Du Shi's face turned pale upon hearing this, and she timidly responded. She hurriedly left, afraid that they would really be kicked out. Watching herself holding Du tightly every time, Li was very proud. She looked at the dilapidated wooden door and wanted to go in and extract the little bastard inside. However, due to the dirty and messy wooden room and the pungent smell of the neighboring livestock room, she had to cross her waist and curse a few more words outside, demonstrating her authority as Yun's daughter. Lol. Only then did she leave before Miss Yun-er's temper reached a critical point and she immediately erupted. Miss Yun-er frowned tightly, causing her head to explode from the noise. She was in a state of pain and weakness all over her body, otherwise she would definitely have taken action. Faced with the current terrible situation, her black and bright eyes were clearly gloomy and extinguished. Very good, a beautiful place. It's best not to let me catch the person who harmed me, otherwise, I won't avenge this and swear not to be a person. This seems to be a country in a different time and space, completely different from the era she lived in, and there has never been a country called Fengyou Kingdom in history. Miss Yun-er was so suffocated by the bad environment that she couldn't feel any pain on her body. She held on and struggled to get out of the dilapidated wooden house. Fortunately, she hadn't been buried by this dilapidated wooden house. The fresh air finally gave her hope of survival. From now on, she will make this cloud bar. Passing little cuties, take them away as soon as you come. If you raise them more, they will turn into towering trees. It needs nutrients, it needs love. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Small Punishment. Cloud Frost. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Small Punishment. Cloud Frost, second sister. A 4 or 5-year-old but exceptionally thin little boy timidly hid on one side of the wall and called out to her in a timid and low voice. As Yunjiu tilted his head and looked over, the little boy shrank back in fear from what he wanted to say. Seeing that he remained silent, Yunjiu was too lazy to pay attention and walked away. The little boy rushed out again and shouted, "Second sister, my mother has made medicine for you. You can drink it while it's hot." After speaking, the little boy put down a tightly covered small basket and ran away in a panic, as if there were some fierce beasts chasing after him. It was evident that he was very afraid of her, yet he had the courage to secretly care for her every time. The entire Yun family, including the mother and son, has a slight goodwill towards Yun liquor. Yunjiu thought of her injuries and felt a cold sweat all over her body when she moved. She glanced at the broken basket and walked over to take the bitter medicine that she didn't want to take a second sip of in her life. There was a black nest next to the medicine jar, and Yunjiu glanced at it. He reached out and took a bite, almost breaking her teeth. It was even harder than a brick. "How do you eat it?" It was her stomach that felt uncomfortable after eating, and she threw it away in anger. So depressed. "Oh my goodness, what did I do to send me to this haunted place?" Yunjiu sighed, still unable to accept what was in her memory. She stumbled out of the room, unable or forced to accept it. "Ugly 8 monsters, have you been beaten again? TSK, your despicable life is really harder than the evil star. You didn't die even after being beaten like this." Actually, she was already dead, but the little witch Miss Yun-er woke up. Yunjiu looked up coldly and saw a 7 or 8-year-old girl standing in front of him, with her chin raised, as if she were a noble person standing high above her. Yunjiu was the mole ant she stepped on under her feet. She is Yun Shuang, the youngest daughter of the uncle's family, not a good bird. Yun Shuang trembled with fear as she met the unfamiliar yet cold eyes. Although she was standing, she was squatting, but it seemed that the latter was the one standing high. You. How could this ugly monster have such a terrifying and cold gaze?" Yun Shuang almost collapsed from fear. Must be ugly enough to make people fearful. Yun Shuang thought to herself that it was because of the ugliness of the 8 monsters that she was so scared for a moment. Yes, that's it. It's not that she's weak, but that her opponent is too ugly. Yunjiu lowered his eyes, too lazy to take care of a little broken child. Yun Shuang ignored her when she saw someone, and after being afraid, her anger rose again. "Ugly, what attitude do you have? How dare you ignore me? What was so scary just now?" She must have been blinded. Ugly 8 monsters deserve to be bullied by her. As he spoke, he had already grabbed a handful of soil and smashed it onto Yunjiu's body. Yunjiu suddenly stopped in his tracks, and his gaze fixed on Yun Shuang coldly. Yun Shuang's legs trembled with fear from her gaze, and she fell to the ground, staring blankly at Yunjiu for a moment. Don't provoke sister, otherwise. Wow. Mom, the ugly 8 monsters are bullying me. Before the harsh words could be finished, the little brat was scared and shouted loudly. Yunjiu's black line, little brat is troublesome, if you can't fight, you'll cry and call your mother. Although she was not afraid of her mother, she called for someone. With her current disabled body, there was no match, so Yunjiu's hand was faster than her brain. She grabbed a piece of soil and stuffed it into the crying mouth of the little broken child, warning harshly, if you cry or make trouble again, you'll stuff feces into your mouth. Yun Shuang was really scared and choked this time. Ugly 8 monsters are too scary. Yunjiu sneered and realized that he was a little kid who was afraid of the hard and bullied the soft. Watching Yunjiu leave, Yun Shuang spat out the dirt from her mouth and fled back to the main room. I owe you abuse, hit me, hit me, hit me, end of this chapter. Chapter 4. Phoenix Territory Stele. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Phoenix Territory Stele. Yunjiu followed the original owner's memory and wandered to the back mountain. He had planned to go there to get some food, but before he knew it, he walked deeper and stepped into a stone tablet with unfamiliar ancient Chinese characters written on it. Yunjiu was fortunate that she had been bored studying ancient Chinese fonts and calligraphy for a period of time during her middle school years, and she happened to recognize these 3 characters. Phoenix Land. In the original owner's memory, this place was designated as a forbidden area by Xingyun village, and the villagers generally did not set foot in this area. Yunjiu looked at the secluded and mysterious forest not far away, with a burning desire for exploration boiling in her blood. However, she was too weak now to foolishly go in and die. The injury was too severe and the physical condition was too weak. Yunjiu sat down exhausted against the stone tablet and rested for a while. While walking, she accidentally touched a thorn with her hand and was scratched, pulling out a bloodstain. Her wet blood then rubbed against the stone tablet. The stone tablet was like a monster, absorbing her blood completely. Yunjiu's pupils contracted violently, with an impulse to run in his mind, but he couldn't resist his curiosity. He stood there foolishly, only to see the originally mottled and mossy stone tablet slowly burst into a brilliant light. Yunjiu didn't notice that at this moment, the white phoenix on her chest was slightly shimmering with a faint light. In an instant, the plants around the stone tablet became spiritually active, as if excited and cheering in the absence of wind. A long vine suddenly sprang out from behind the stone tablet, tightly gripping Yunjiu's wrist. Yunjiu was surprised and didn't know what she was thinking. She even bit the vine in one bite, trying to stop its entanglement. The green leaves of the long vine trembled, as if they were really afraid of pain, and the entanglement really loosened. Effective. Yunjiu's eyes lit up with a gleam, and he mercilessly tore off a piece of skin. Changting trembled violently before quickly escaping from Yunjiu's wrist and retreating directly behind the stone tablet, afraid to come out again. In an instant, the light inside the stone tablet disappeared and disappeared. The stone tablet was still the old one, only slightly dimmed. Zhou Wu, a silent and suffocating place. It seems like the scene just now has never happened. If it weren't for the wounds and bloodstains still there, Yunjiu would have thought he had watched a suspense movie. Cloud wine is rare. Although I have experienced the strange thing of soul piercing, it is even rarer for these animals and plants to have spiritual intelligence. Yunjiu wanted to explore the truth, but at this moment she sensed a wave in the air. She instinctively sensed danger and wanted to leave here quickly, so she really disappeared in place in an instant. At the moment when Yunjiu disappeared, a vortex appeared in the fluctuating space, followed by 3 figures in black. Jui, there is a strange smell in the air. There's also a smell of blood. The man's eagle-like eyes swept around, and finally the liquid that fell on a few green leaves was bloodstains. Qin Mu leaned over to check and couldn't help but frown. Ninth Lord, I didn't expect someone from another country with such skills to sneak in and still be able to escape unscathed. Good guy, he's also sliding very fast. It's hard to say, he probably didn't leave through normal channels. The man frowned slightly and said with a hint of displeasure, let's go back first. But, don't you check? Qin Mu frowned, feeling that he couldn't leave this hidden danger. The person who can move the boundary marker is definitely not an ordinary person. It's not easy for you to check, the man said, but he still left a secret message before leaving. The three of them didn't dwell on this issue anymore, and the forest fell silent again. It hasn't rained recently. The little ones who have come here need to move their feet and leave deeper marks. Let me see your little feet. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Fengpei space. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Fengpei space. And Yunjiu, who was hiding, was now completely immersed in her modern secret room, which simply made her overjoyed. She didn't expect her grandmother to give her a white jade phoenix pendant as a gift for her 15th birthday. At first, she didn't notice anything special, just thought it was a top-quality sheep fat jade. She liked it very much and hung it close to her neck. Later, when she was injured, she discovered this phoenix pendant space. Fengpei transformed into a white phoenix and landed on her left chest, but no one discovered the secret. In modern times, this space is only used by her as a secret storage room. At that time, living creatures, including herself, could not enter. Unexpectedly, she was able to come in today. God still treats her well. Even if she dies, she can still come back to life, and it comes with a big surprise. No matter how bad the future may be, she won't worry anymore. Her storage room, however, contains a lot of good things, including food, toys, gold, silver, jewelry, and so on. At this moment, Yunjiu was starving and couldn't catch her eye on gold, silver, jewelry, or anything else. She walked briskly to the small kitchen where all the utensils used to be taken out for use. Now that she could come in, it was more convenient. For camping, she prepared a lot of ingredients this time, but now she can only cook a bowl of noodles to fill her stomach. The original owner's body was too weak and needed to be slowly replenished, and she also needs to strengthen her exercise. After a full meal, he found the medicine box and treated his injuries before falling asleep again. She is currently an injured person and doesn't want to do anything. Let's take care of her injuries first. After 10 days of nurturing, all the injuries on my body have recovered, so I can't bear to study the long vine spirit plant. Yunjiu wanted to turn it around. He, Xiatengzi, come out. Perhaps upon hearing her devilish voice, Nagato shrank even tighter. If you don't come out, I'll move this stone tablet away, Yunjiu continued to threaten. Sure enough, this threat was effective, and Nagato came out trembling. Yunjiu's eyes were shining brightly. Little Tingzi, how are you going to come with me? Changting seemed to be hesitating, and after waiting for a while, Yunjiu was caught off guard by Changting's wrist, which was suddenly bleeding profusely. Yunjiu was angry and said, Little Tingzi, are you trying to kill yourself? No, master. Didn't you say you wanted to take the boundary marker away? Now you can take it away, explained little Fujiko quickly. Yunjiu quickly took medicine from the space to stop the bleeding, and the blood dripping on the stone tablet was absorbed again, but this time it was absorbed more than last time. The original 3 characters in black, Phoenix Land, infected the blood and turned red. A burst of colorful light, as if a seal was broken, flew out of the stone tablet and dashed into the body of Yunjiu. Yunjiu was stunned, with 13 more bonds on his soul. After several bangs in her mind, the space of her phoenix pendant underwent earth-shattering changes. The storage room, which used to be only 1,000 cubic meters, has become a wudong forest. There are 13 phoenix towers of different sizes in the forest, as well as a treasure room and a library. She immediately entered the space, ignoring everything else. She went first to the treasure room to check and not let her storage room disappear. That's her capital for being carefree in this world. Oh my god, my storage room. Yunjiu looked around for a week but didn't see anything, and finally fixed his eyes on the treasure room. This treasure trove looked like a 2-story pavilion from the outside, but upon entering it, she realized that it was even larger and spacious than she had imagined. Although large, there are not many treasures hidden. Yunjiu was not very disappointed with this, and what came for nothing was optional. Little cuties, add some oil to me. First of all, respected. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Fengyan Wanyuan Ju. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 6. Fengyan Wanyuan Ju. Yunjiu only cared about her storage room, which was her lifelong accumulation. Finally, she found the familiar storage room in the westernmost corner of the first floor, with plenty of things inside. It's okay, otherwise I wouldn't have wanted such a large space, she said after confirming that the storage room is intact. Yunjiu had the leisure to stroll through this treasure trove. After strolling around, she found that the treasures were all rare treasures, but they were locked in small compartments with unique seals that were not something she could easily retrieve, so they were only decorations that could not be used. After a resentful glance, Yunjiu turned his head and walked out of the treasure room. As soon as she walked out, little Tingzi wrapped her wrist around her and turned into a green wooden bracelet. Yunjiu went to the library again, which is a 3-story small building. Yunjiu first flipped through the first floor and then went to the second floor to take a look. When he reached the third floor, there was a door that couldn't be opened. Master, try using your blood, little Fujiko reminded. Yunjiu tried it and thought to ask Xiatengzi, do those treasures in the treasure room also need my blood to open? That's not it, that requires source force to open. Source force. What is source force? The essence formed by all things in the world is the power to transform the source of cost. You can only use it through practice. You can find a suitable skill when you go in. You seem to be very familiar with this place. What is your relationship with this space? Yunjiu couldn't help feeling a little uncomfortable. Originally my own property, with these invaders, it seems like my territory has become theirs. I am just a little guardian spirit of the Phoenix tribe. Yunjiu glanced at the bracelet on his wrist and realized that such a coward was actually the guardian spirit of a clan. As expected, the Feng clan had declined. It is indeed declining, otherwise only some souls would have fallen. Yunjiu bit his finger and casually flicked a drop of blood, which fell into the eye hole of the door lock. With a loud bang, the heavy black door slowly opened. As soon as the door opens, Yunjiu can feel a strong aroma rushing towards it, fresh and ethereal, making people feel relaxed and happy. That breath poured down from the heavenly cover, pouring into Yunjiu's entire body. Yunjiu let out a sigh of relief and took a deep breath, as if his soul had been washed away. Feeling the benefits, Yunjiu looks forward to the treasure on the third floor even more. Yunjiu eagerly stepped in, leaving the entire third floor even more spacious. As far as he could see, only a book was hanging in the air. It is marked in writing with the Fengyan Wanyuan Ju. As Yunjiu reached out to grab it, the book rushed into Yunjiu's forehead as if conscious and disappeared. At the same time, Yunjiu had the Fengyan Wanyuan Ju in his mind. According to the content, Yunjiu sat cross-legged and began to draw qi into his body. With just 1 cup of tea, Yunjiu opened his eyes and curled his lips with a smile. Hee, I think this is a blessing in disguise, Mississippi. Although she said so, her heart was still empty. Master, congratulations on becoming a cultivator, but you need to go out of the room to absorb essence. Little Fujiko is very satisfied. The master is the master, with extraordinary talent, so he can draw qi into his body so quickly. So, Yunjiu stayed in the forest for more than 3 months, mainly for cultivation and hunting. Train the source power to level 3, harvest a full harvest of prey and herbs, and then descend the mountain still unsatisfied. Xiatengzi said she can't stay on the mountain all the time to practice. She needs to gradually cultivate her mind, just like a building. She needs to build the foundation first to have a towering building. Please adopt me. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Yun family in Xingyun village. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Yun family in Xingyun village. Where exactly did you say that ugly monster went? It's almost time for her to reach her hair, but she's been raised for nothing and hasn't found anything. When she comes back, it's necessary to quickly marry her off and get some dowry to pay for it. Auntie Li was working and cursing at home, devilishly calculating how to maximize the value of Yunjiu. The disappearance of Yunjiu did not cause much trouble in the Yun family. It was not the Du family or her younger brother who was most concerned about her, but the Li family. Because Yunjiu went missing, a lot of work both at home and abroad fell on her, so it's necessary to read it every day. At this moment, Du Shi and Yunyao will both be far away from her. Du Shi even hopes that her eldest daughter will never come back, as sister.in.law is too scary. Unfortunately, upon first thought, Yunjiu's face with 2 long scars on his fingers was clearly reflected in his eyes. Jior. Du trembled for a moment. How did he come back? Mother. Although this woman is cowardly and humble, having a heart to protect her cubs is enough. Du moved his lips and had a lot to ask, but in the end, he sighed helplessly. He panicked and handed a hoe to Yunjiu. Here you are, go to the field first. Yunjiu knew that she would have some conflicts with the people inside when she returned, so she wanted her to avoid it. But she came prepared and will definitely not live the life of a dog and a pig like before. Mom, I'm not afraid, I haven't had breakfast yet. Yunjiu didn't take the hoe and comforted Du in a soft voice before entering the room. Du became anxious and said, whine. It's okay, I brought some prey back to Fiji Nai. Yunjiu smiled and picked up the wild chicken and rabbit in his hand to show Du Shi. At this moment, Du Shi discovered the wild rooster and wild rabbit, and looked at his daughter's back, which was not as hunched and cowardly as before, for a moment of confusion. Oh, ugly, who allowed you to come to the main house? Get out of here quickly. As soon as Yunjiu stepped over the threshold, he was scolded by a disgusted voice. Everyone looked over at the sound and saw the once timid little girl, who disregarded Li's scolding and swaggered in. Some frowned, some were surprised, and some were gloating, waiting to see the ugly 8 monsters killed. There's just no one waiting to see her. Yun Lauer has been away from home for years and doesn't know what he's doing outside, so he can automatically ignore it. Yun Laosan's family bought a house in the county and naturally lived there. Yun Fei and Yun Yen are also not here. Except for these 2 people, the Yun family is all eating their heads and intestines, while the Yun family is all as thin as a stick. If it weren't for his undisclosed identity, Yunjiu wouldn't even want to feed this group of vampires with a single strand of meat. Grandpa and Grandma, I went up the mountain and brought some prey back to add to your meal. Yunjiu greeted me with a smile and lit up the bloody rabbit and pheasant in his hand. Mr. Yun glanced majestically and thought to himself that this ugly thing was a bit ugly and useful. Before Mr. Yun could speak, Mrs. Yun became angry and said, we're having dinner, so why don't you come in and invite us with these bloody things? It's not easy for our Yun family to take care of you, isn't it right for you to do these things? You can't just take them directly to the kitchen, there's no one in sight. After being scolded, Yunjiu still smiled lightly and said, Grandma is right, I'll put it in now. Yunjiu put the prey into the kitchen, and when he came out, although he saw that the breakfast this big family had was far from his past life, he sighed, but it was still barely enough to eat. Begging to scatter flowers. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Ginseng comes to pave the way. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Ginseng comes to pave the way. In addition to the Lijiang family, the Yun family is also considered a wealthy family in the village. Even so, they habitually treated the second wife and her family harshly, only because the second wife was not the daughter-in-law that Yun Laotai liked, and the resentment had deepened. Yunjiu naturally has no blood relationship with them. Grandparents, I still have 2 small ginseng to show my filial piety to your 2 elders. Yunjiu casually took out 2 ginseng from his arms and placed them in front of Madame Yun. The Yun family was shocked to see the 2 ginseng still wearing soil. This girl, damn it, how could you just waste such precious ginseng? Old Lady Yun regained her senses. She was overjoyed at first, and then glanced at her broken roots, feeling heartbroken and bleeding, as if seeing her precious son being abused. Hee, then I'll be more careful next time, Yun Jiu joked. Mrs. Yun is still satisfied with her wit. Although this granddaughter is a bit ugly, she has always been filial and obedient. Mrs. Yun's tense face softened by 2 points. Can you still get ginseng? Of course. Yun Jiu took the opportunity to make a request. As a member of this family, I naturally want to play my own value in the future and pay for the company's food, accommodation expenses. However, I also hope that my grandparents don't treat me like a spoiled child. At least they can treat me equally, so that my granddaughter will have more motivation to do things. What do you mean? Little bastard dares to come to us and invite pets, without looking at what he is. Second, where did you die? How dare you let a little girl climb onto my mother's head and act wildly? Old Lady Yun has a hot temper and does not accept being threatened by a younger generation's words. The shrewd Li Shi heard the meaning behind the ugly 8 strange words and immediately glared fiercely at Yunjiu. Mother, this girl has been fooling around for 3 months. Who knows how this ginseng came from? I think we should quickly marry her out to avoid bringing disaster to our family. Li Shi does not allow an ugly monster to treat her daughter equally. It is impossible to dream. The already ugly smile on Yunjiu's face sank, and for a moment it turned chilly. Is there any way to save this family? Her flattery is like beating a dog with meat buns, with no return. Yunjiu no longer paid attention to the harsh old Lady Yun and the sharp-hearted family, but looked at the head of the family, Mr. Yun. Mr. Yun sat upright there, exuding a majestic aura. He had 3 sons and 2 daughters in his 2 lives, and more than a dozen grandchildren, making him a family full of children and grandchildren. The eldest son, Yun Jingtang, and the eldest daughter-in-law, Yun Li, have 2 sons and 2 daughters. The eldest grandson, Yun Fei, is only a child at the age of 18, but he is relatively honest and has never bullied Yunjiu. 16-year-old daughter Yun Yan, due to her beautiful appearance, always likes to compare herself to Yun Dai. She is proud and threatens to marry a noblewoman, so she has not yet arranged a marriage. The second son Yun Gan is 10 years old, with a chubby head and a big brain, and is the king of children in the village. The youngest daughter, Yun Shuang, is 8 years old. The second son, Yun Jingtian, and the second daughter-in-law, Yun Du, are also the biological parents of Yunjiu. The 2 of them have 1 son and 2 daughters, and Yunjiu is considered the eldest daughter of the second wife, ranking second. My younger sister, Yunxi, is 12 years old. It is said that on the day Yunxi was born, his scumbag father found a money bag and believed that his second daughter was his lucky star. It was because he couldn't have the baby that he got the hopeful word, Shi. My younger brother Yun Yao is only 6 years old and has been weak and sickly since childhood due to premature birth. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Cleaning up the Li family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Cleaning up the Li family. The third son, Yun Jingfu, and the third daughter-in-law, Yun Kai, currently have 2 sons and 1 daughter. The eldest son of the third family, Yun Ji, is the grandson with the highest expectations of the Yun family. At the age of 16, he is already the youngest scholar in the village, and his status is naturally the highest in the Yun family. My daughter, Yun Dai, is 13 years old and has a delicate appearance. She was trained by Yun Kai according to the rules of an official lady. She is proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and has gained the reputation of being a talented young woman in Jinan town. My 8-year-old son Yun Ho is also very well raised. The Yun family has good genes and everyone is not ugly, especially Yun Lao-san who attracted the wealthy Miss Kai, who has a restaurant, with her handsome appearance. With the support of Kai's family, the 3-bedroom family mostly lives in the town and won't come back for anything major. It is said that the ancestors of the Yun family were also the top 3 waiters, who were demoted to their hometown due to the failure of competing for reserve. Relying on the shadow of their ancestors, the Yun family is the richest aristocrat in Xingyun village. Although Mr. Yun's achievements and fame have been taken away, at least his knowledge is also a Jiren, and he is also a clan leader in Xingyun village. But one of their granddaughters leads a life that is not as good as a pig or a dog, which is extremely ironic to think of. The original owner could tolerate such a life, but she couldn't bear it. Grandpa, our family is not short of money, food and drink, nor a house. Why treat our granddaughter so harshly? The questioning tone carried an unprecedented coldness. Mr. Yun was questioned and looked at Yunjio with some surprise. His eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his gaze was somewhat puzzled and unfamiliar. Although he has never taken care of his granddaughters at home, his impression of Yunjio is deep, and he has become increasingly timid and insecure since his disfigurement. So he completely gave up. Now, this girl sweeps away the darkness and begins to demand benefits, which is a bit interesting. What kind of ghost do you look like yourself, don't you know? Li sure didn't want to blurt out and curse. Yunjio tilted his eyes and said, "Who caused me to look like this ghost? I think Auntie probably doesn't want her elder sister, who wants to become an official wife, to be a malicious elder sister who harms her cousin as everyone knows, right?" In the original owner's memory, these 2 ugly scars on her face were caused by Li's precious eldest daughter using scissors. At that time, one was 8 years old and the other was 6 years old. If we were to say intentionally, no one believed it, but if we were to say unintentionally, Yunjio didn't believe a single word. Li, under the pressure of Yunjio's gaze, felt guilty and panicked for a moment. However, looking at this cheap girl who usually lives under her own hands, she couldn't help but feel angry. "You little slut, if you dare to go out and talk nonsense, I'll tear your mouth apart." Cursing, Li rushed over to grab Yunjio's hair and tear it apart. However, as she approached, her hand was easily grabbed by a small, dark hand. The next second, with a click, Li's plump palm bent downwards, followed by Li's horrific scream, breaking the tranquility of the early morning in Xingyun village. Everyone's faces changed, and their gaze at Yunjio changed a few times again. They covered up that incident at will, relying on the fact that the original owner was young. Now that it is mentioned, it will not only affect Yunyan's marriage, but also affect the family tradition of the Yun family. At this moment, everyone in the Yun family looked at Yunjio as if she was a demon. She actually injured the Li family. You should know that besides the second elder, the Li family is the most authoritative existence in the Yun family. This authority mainly refers to the Li family's throwing and rolling, which no one can match. Killed, ugly 8 monsters killed. Ugly 8 monsters, you're reckless. Yun Lauda, Yun Jingtang, stood up and scolded, not knowing if he was afraid of Yunjio's strength, but he didn't dare to take action. TikTok, could you please send me the blade? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. She likes to abuse scum. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. She likes to abuse scum. Yunjiomu's face turned wooden, and his subordinates exerted another force, casually pushing Li into Yun Lauda's arms. Poor Li's tonnage collided with Yun Lauda, causing both of them to fall backwards. Mr. Yun and others cleverly avoided it, otherwise it would definitely be a disaster scene. Mr. Yun's eyes were filled with stars, his chest was sore, and he couldn't help but curse, "Damn it, you fat pig. You know how to eat every day. You eat like a pig, and you're about to crush me. Bang! Li was scolded and rudely slapped Mr. Yun. You coward, you can't even catch my mother. It's fortunate that you mean to scold me. Yao Shou, the morning star, what are you doing back for? Mrs. Yun saw this and patted her thigh, cursing, feeling sorry for her son but afraid to confront the Li family. Suddenly looking at Yunjiu, disgusted and cold. Yun Jiudao said, I took my baby with good intentions and came back to show my filial piety to my parents. However, my aunt kept scolding me and even started hitting me. When I grow up, I won't be able to stand still like before and let her bully me recklessly. So what do you want? Said Mr. Yun, who had been silent for a long time. This matter, girl is right, mainly because Li Shi is too capable of causing trouble. Yun Jiu hooked his lips and smiled. Finally, there was someone in the Yun family who could reason. I didn't think of anything, I just wanted to eat and live well in this family, and live like a person. Of course, as I grow up, I will never eat or drink from the Yun family for free. I will give money. Give me money. Your money belongs to the Yun family, where did you get it? Mrs. Yun holds the financial power of the Yun family and never allows anyone to hide anything. When she hears Yun Jiu's words, she looks at her coldly like someone else has touched her money bag. Yun Jiumu said with a face on his face, I am not a servant of the Yun family. If you don't recognize me as your granddaughter, then I will leave. If she has money, she can't go anywhere, but she doesn't want to live in exile. People are social animals, only noisy can have a taste, and she likes to abuse scum. Upon hearing that she was about to leave, Li was even more explosive than Lady Yun. Leaving. Where are your spring and autumn dreams? The Yun family raised you with a bunch of feces and urine, but they raised your wolf heart. Enough, Mr. Yun couldn't help but shout as his eldest daughter Law made him headache. They haven't died yet, why is it her turn to shout? Beat and curse things that are not afraid. Mr. Yun glared coldly at Li at the moment, showing that his dissatisfaction had reached its extreme. Early in the morning, she was scolded by her and caused a mess. However, Li Shi was not afraid. She was the eldest daughter Law, and she would be in charge of this family in the future. She would also be in charge of ugly things, so she continued to persist. Dad, she's ugly and has a wild heart. Then let's marry her off. Anyway, they are also immature white-eyed wolves. If they sell them, they can still get some silver in their hands as soon as possible. Yun Jiu's smile was full, but his eyes, which couldn't be seen to the end, were pitch black and cold, making old man Yun feel a chill in his heart for a moment. This granddaughter is different, dare to resist. He was afraid that marrying someone out according to Li's wishes would be a disaster for their Yun family. Your surname is Li, and it's not yet up to you to make the decision in this family. Mr. Yun's face was tense, and as soon as the head of the family showed his majestic aura, neither the Li family nor Mrs. Yun dared to be more reckless. After finishing drinking Li and Mrs. Yun, Mr. Yun turned to Yun Jiu and said, okay, I promise you, but you also have to promise not to cause any trouble for me. As long as no one bothers me, I naturally won't, Yun Jiu said. She's not a fool, she wouldn't be constrained by this. She's a fool who won't fight back when bullied. End of this chapter.